Hello and welcome to CLEA'S World. I am Clea, and today I would like to share with you more of the information I've received from the 25th dimension during my last QHHT Hypnosis session. I'll be reading from a transcript of the session, and when I refer to Lorrayne, I'm speaking of my practitioner who's asking me questions I have prepared in advance of the session. And when I refer to me, I'm speaking of myself under hypnosis, which means that the answers are coming from the 25th dimension. Before I start reading, as always, I want to thank you for subscribing to my channel, liking and commenting on this video. I really appreciate that. All right, I'm going to start reading here. Lorrayne, you said that even a 1 to 2% discrepancy in vibration is a big deal, and we are not really able to handle it. Does this mean that all of us on this planet are within less than 1% vibrational discrepancy, including the teams of the light and the dark? Me. Yes, and that's what's hard to conceive. First of all, we already said we want to promise here. We have used percentages because you have asked us to use percentages. That's not necessarily how we believe, how we think of energy. But when you think in percentage terms, we already said that's a huge discrepancy. So yes, in that sense, yes. And what we mean is, now we all know that we have people or situations that we react to that feel very dark to us, or they feel very challenging. We feel it because, again, we feel everything. We just pretend not to. But there are times when this filters through and we feel that. We can't deny it. We will go into a room where the vibration will be very different from what we're feeling, from our frequency. It will feel uncomfortable, okay? And we've seen it in the positive as well. We might feel a little down or a little bit, not great. And all of a sudden, we go into a room where the vibration is so high and we feel great. We forgot about everything. We're like, wow, this is wonderful. So it works in both directions. But yes, when we say that we are very close to each other in vibration, we don't mean to say that you, Lorrayne, would necessarily feel the same way that somebody who's doing, a ritual, a dark ritual of some kind would be feeling, or that you have the same vibration. But the fact is, that's how we judge at 3D level, because the reality is for us to both occupy the same space, if you like, or even to come into contact with each other, and we are all in contact with each other here, we have to be able to work together. And so not only we are, and we will use this word, quote unquote, because we already said the energy, the vibration comes from the inside, we bring the frequency. But there is an overall frequency we set up for this planet, which again, for example, that's when we say we have now rebalanced the polarity. And again, it's not because it's outside of us. There's nothing outside of us. We truly have rebalanced how we play here. It's what it means. And so for us to play the same game, we cannot be so disparate in vibration. Now, that said, we already said consciousness. This is the problem. We always think that consciousness equals frequency. That's not necessarily the case. It can be, but it's not necessarily the case. We are receiving information from the 25th dimension. What is the level of consciousness right now? We might be very consciously aware, but it doesn't mean that we know this. First of all, our vibration changes all day long and all the time, and we know this. You might wake up and you're in a great mood. You go to bed and you're like, you got this dark cloud over you. So our vibration obviously fluctuates. But when you find yourself in certain situations with people that might have a lower vibration, many times we go along with it. What does that mean? Where is our vibration then? So truly, I think the gist of this question, beyond just the percentages that we're using, is we like to believe here that, again, we play this game that we are of the light, therefore we have high vibration. They are of the dark or in the middle, whatever they are, they, quote unquote, and therefore they have a lower vibration from ours. But we already said we have supported all kinds of low vibrational stuff. So we're not always high vibration, and they were laughing. Now we know that it's not just a game that we're playing. We also have the higher self does bring high vibration. We have already said that one of the jobs really of the 12,000 is to raise the vibration. We're raising the vibration no matter what, wherever we go. That's one of the reasons we said Clea has traveled so much. She's met a lot of people. She's integrated a lot of the energy. She's also transformed a lot of these people just by her vibration. But at the same time, there were many times when she was hanging out with these people where she wasn't necessarily in her highest vibration at a 3D level. So that's when we say, it's not as easy as saying percentages. The fact is, we have all played the game here. We're still playing it right now. We've all played the game here, and a big part of playing this game, which is the reason we from the beginning have had an issue with the dark being so much better than us at playing, is that you have to use certain vibrations to keep things in a certain range of reality, of what we like to believe is reality. We've all done this. The moment that we judge the people that came up with this thing, for example, we are in that vibration. We are playing the game. So are we very different from somebody on the side of the dark? We've already said we're playing the same game. It's two sides of the same coin when we do this. When we have these types of judgments, and we do have judgment here, we cannot do without, this is how we want to play. And so yes, in that sense, there isn't that much difference in vibration, generally speaking, between most people. It's not that we think that, again, people on the side of the dark, they can't be anywhere near me. They still are. We already said, for example, we're talking about Fraudchi, and that's the now supposedly retired doctor that was in charge of the whole pandemic. Fraudchi is one of the most spiritual people, is one of the most powerful people, because he is one of the most spiritual people, even within the ranks of the dark. You wouldn't be able to do what he has done if you didn't have that, that intent, that mission, that vibration. So we are very judgmental, even when it comes, and we know this, we're very judgmental, even when it comes to vibration, to frequency. When we seek the light, so it's up here, and this is bad, and is down here. We already said, in order to create 3D reality, we've had to use very low vibration. But low doesn't mean awful, terrible, ugly necessarily. That's not what we mean by it. So this question presupposes confusion, a basic confusion when it comes to vibration, to energy. Lorrayne, thank you. In the last session, you said in regards to one of Clea's dreams, Clea was very, very frustrated in the game. And this is what we've been referring to as light workers, but really as people on the side of the light in general. We have felt like we're fighting everybody. We are trying to get something done, but people will not follow us. People will not support our ideas. This is very much what happened when we called the takedown, or we got to the extreme where we had to call the takedown because we wanted to recalibrate things, and nobody was even understanding why we needed to recalibrate. And this is the end of the quote. But we have all been around for eons. We all knew about the optimal range of balanced polarity, and that we were already outside of range and hovering around 60%, at which point a planet is taken down. Not only, you said a 60% range, already nobody's really enjoying anymore. How come they did not heed us when we wanted to recalibrate and even acted as if we didn't know what we're talking about, or treated us like a nuisance? This seems very unique in the multiverse's history, where populations are good at recalibrating, and surely we ourselves have done it innumerable times, so we know how to do it. Me. Yeah, so we have already discussed this previously in today's session. However, to summarize, generally, yes, that's exactly what's always happened. We are good at recalibrating. We know not to get to an extreme. We know not to get outside of range, because then things happen. We are aware of this. What has played against us here, if you wish, what we did not account for is the fact that, again, we hadn't been on this planet very long when the dark started getting the upper hand. And we wanted to recalibrate, but we're still in initial stages. So we thought that, okay, let's do the resets. We're just very free in how we felt. We were still molding things. So we're still testing what rules we could use. Of course, we know we all come in with rules we don't want to break. So we're not saying that it was the Wild West in that sense. But basically, that's when we came up with the idea of resets, and people were still having fun. A lot of people were still having fun before the reset, but enough people were we already saw what the pattern was and what the propensity was that we were dipping into. We were going towards negative polarity. But of course, the moment we created the resets, things escalated a lot quicker. So really, it was almost like whiplash. This is what we refer to when we said, we discussed this previously. Not only now we are dealing with a very dense reality, but we're also dealing with the fact that you're having serious trouble adjusting to this new reality over and over, that's changing so quickly. And not only, but that is so negatively polarized compared to what it was just yesterday. This is mind-boggling when you think about it. It's not just, oh, it's what we would think of today and say, oh, tomorrow there's a new law, another crappy law going into effect. No, we're talking about a completely new reality that's much more negative going into effect. It's almost as if you moved from the United States or from here to the middle of China, and all of a sudden it's a completely different life. So it's not as simple. If you look at it in abstract, out of context, you could say, which is exactly the gist of the question, well, we know how to recalibrate. It's almost like a process you have written down, quality control, right? You say, we're going outside of range, we need to recalibrate, let's go. It's almost like you have a factory, you can give the order, everybody recalibrate. It doesn't work that way. First of all, there were several things happening at the same time. Secondly, again, essences are free. So you're not just giving an order and say, this is what needs to happen. Because we did call for these things many times, but everybody could be lost in doing whatever they were doing. Again, we said the reality is very dense here, and that's what's happened. So it's been a combination of factors that have not allowed us to catch on. And by the time we had started going down this path, it was kind of too late. We already said once we started doing resets, it would have been really difficult to recalibrate. And once we called a takedown, we didn't even think about recalibrating anymore. So really, we had a short window of opportunity in the beginning. But because in the beginning, most people didn't really see the urgency or where the emergency was, including many of us. So again, we're not talking about the sleepers here, okay? It's not an us versus them. Many of us were still enjoying the game or enjoying it enough. We had no idea we would get to this situation. We already said, in hindsight, it would have been better not to have resets. It would have given us more opportunities, just like on the other planets in 3D. But think of it, even on the other 3D planets, they've not had resets and they've been able to recalibrate enough to where they kept themselves away from a takedown situation. But they're not that far. They're definitely negatively polarized, and they're definitely dealing with a lot of darkness. And because we already said, they're near 60% negative polarity. At 60%, you call for a takedown. That's how dark it is. So we're not here talking about paradise. We're talking about planets. They're very much out of range, and they're suffering, or they were suffering until recently. They're rebuilding, as we've discussed before. We are changing everything here. And so, yes, that's why. So it's not that we were just like, oh my gosh, how could this happen? We have done this a million times, and all of a sudden we're not doing it. It's always a different situation. Even recalibrating, it's not something that happens automatically where they're like, okay, we got to, 57% negative polarity. Here we go. Everybody recalibrate. We go through this emotion in human terms, which means that you change how you do certain things. Really behind the scenes, we're changing, again, we're recalibrating the polarity in some ways. So even though the other 3D planets, when we say that they're recalibrated, they're still in negative territory. Because it means when we say you recalibrate, you basically do not go along with certain things anymore. But it doesn't mean that you do not accept any negative ideas anymore. You do not support anything dark anymore. Here, recalibrating might have meant that we would have never gotten to torturing animals, but we had already decided that killing animals for food was perfectly fine. We could have stayed with that, and so it's not quite so straightforward. We understand the meaning behind the question, but it's not quite as simple. And we understand that there's a lot of judgment, a lot of frustration, a lot of resistance on Clea's part in regards to how could we get to this point. And she will be much more clear on this as we continue doing this work. But we did not want to get to this point. We were not aware. We didn't willfully neglect our duties, because that's how it feels like in this question. Like we willfully said, screw it. We're enjoying the dark. I'm here at the party getting drunk. I don't care. I don't care. Screw the world. That's not quite how it works. We don't want to, we said this a million times, we don't want to destroy this. We don't want to break these games. We didn't think that's what would happen. We really kind of lost track. We really were kind of surprised. We played a new game, so in many ways, it was interesting. We've done things here that were very interesting from the higher self perspective. They just haven't ended so well. So that's unfortunate. And of course, they haven't felt great at 3D level either. So I wanted to read this comment to you. I have to say that this answer has caused a breakthrough for me. I've been having many, many dreams where I felt extremely frustrated to the point of anger. I would wake up and I would still be reeling because of how we have called for the recalibration and were ignored. You can imagine that already that doesn't feel good in 3D, and this was a million times bigger considering the outcome. However, this explanation of what happened puts things in perspective for me. Previously, I felt very judgmental. Like I told you and you ignore me, this is all your fault. And now we have to take this down kind of thing. And I have mentioned this in my previous video that this is how I was feeling. But judgment is what we do here. I can see how once I see what really happened, it will make sense and I will be able to let it go. In fact, I feel ready to let this bit go right now. And the words, it is what it is, keep coming up for me in connection to this matter. And it's exactly how this breakthrough came across for me. These words kept repeating in my head, it is what it is, it is what it is, which is a wonderful expression that we actually really don't have in Italian. So it's something I believe very powerful about the English language. And it really does apply perfectly to the situation. I have to say, I have gotten over this issue, this obstacle that I had in my understanding. And there's many more that I have to tackle. I am not enlightened just yet, but this was a big one for me. In fact, those dreams have now stopped because I have integrated this bit. And again, each of us does integrate different bits of reality so that we can leverage each other's progress. And eventually on the earth, we will be able to accelerate our understanding, integration. And so we'll be able to move forward faster. So this is all great work that we're all doing, really, whether we are aware of doing it or not. We are all doing this work in the background. All right, Lorrayne, thank you. Now, this next question, you may have already answered some of it, but I'm going to read through it and then you can address whatever didn't get addressed already. We get to 60% negative polarity very quickly once the dark took hold of the resets. They knew the other planets had been taken down to 60%. Why would they go there? You said they were expecting us to counterbalance them, but they continued to do resets to make it darker and darker here until we had to call for the takedown. Maybe they're not so much better than us at playing the game, actually. And maybe we are not the only ones who screwed up. And while I'm over all of this now, I wasn't over any of this when I was writing these questions before the session. So you can tell that there is still a bit of a little bit of anger there underlying these questions, a little bit of resentment. Me. Yes, of course, we all screwed up, if you want to think of it that way. And of course, there is no failure at the higher self level. But if you want to think of it in 3D terms, when, say, we're judging from the result or from the fact that we have to take this down, the fact that we failed here, then yes, we all screwed up. So they are better. When we say they're better at playing the game, what we mean is they're more effective at 3D level. We've seen it. They've created everything around us. We are living in a dark reality. All the systems are dark. Even if they weren't originally created by the dark, they become dark very quickly. So this is what we mean, but it doesn't mean that they had an omniscience that we were missing. So really, we are the ones that screwed up in not doing things that made sense. So yeah, did they know? Yes. Did they know they were already hovering and they shouldn't have pushed? Well, again, they were hoping that we would do something. But at the same time, at 3D level, what do? You just keep doing what you're doing. Just like we already said, when the CEO of, and this is a pharmaceutical company that has pushed very crappy stuff onto people the last 2 or 3 years, really, always. When the CEO of this company or whatever wakes up in the morning, he's got a list of things he's got to do. He's got a to-do list, just like we do. And these are dark things because that's what he does. It's not that he's thinking what's going to happen to the planet if I do these things. You see, we experienced it in a very humdrum way. Here we experience evil, what we consider to be evil, bad, dark, in a very humdrum way. I'm going about things and tomorrow I'm going to rob this guy because I got to make some money. And the next day, if I hit somebody on the road, I'm going to run because I don't want to get in trouble. It's one thing after the other. This is just how we lead our life. And it's not that we're thinking, oh gosh, this is going to get so much darker. And 200 years down the line, it's going to be really awful because of what I did today. All I'm focused on is how do I survive today? And the dark is they're just like us. We said this many times. So we understand, again, this question is implying that we had perfect vision at a higher self level. How could we? The question behind all of CLEA'S questions is always, how could we get to this point? What the hell is wrong with us all? It's not quite how we experience this here. It does not reflect, it truly, truly was a mistake. Even the people, because CLEA feels, and this is what has transpired in dream state for her as well, CLEA feels that, and again, all the people on the team of the light have felt this way. frustrated, saying, but we could see, we knew the train was going to hit the wall. Why can't I wake you up? This is your fault. This is what she meant. This is what is implied in this question. It was your fault. But the fact is, even the dark didn't know. They didn't want the planet to be taken down. So yes, did we make mistakes? We said this from the beginning. We have made a lot of mistakes here. But a mistake is a mistake. You do something, you don't know how it's going to end. It's not that you're doing something saying, this is going to be a mistake. And so we understand the frustration. And again, we understand that nobody's happy that we have to take this down. But it truly was a mistake. And yes, the dark has made many, many mistakes, if you want to think of it that way, just like we have. So at the end of the day, that's why we'll move on and say, well, it was what it was. Nobody's innocent here in terms of if you're looking at it from a 3D perspective and saying who made mistakes and who didn't. Nobody's innocent. But of course, we all are, because they were honest mistakes. We didn't mean to do any harm. We certainly never planned, never schemed to have to take down the planet. Well, I'm going to end this video here. Thank you so much for watching as always, and I'll see you in the next video. Take care.